The 2022 overdose death of one of my favorite humans, my oldest sister, Sarah, turned my world upside down, if it was ever upright to begin with. As a mental health and addiction therapist, the irony, guilt, and shame were crushing. How could this have happened when I dedicated my life to understanding and combating these very issues for fuck's sake? I had seen her struggles for years, countless conversations echoing our shared concerns, mine, our families, her friends, her husbands. Yet the agonizing question persisted. Why hadn't I done more? Why hadn't I applied the very advice I dispense daily to my clients to help my own sister, to save her? A year after Sarah died, my other sister Gretchen extended an unexpected invitation. A 3-day guided ayahuasca weekend, a recommendation from a trusted friend. The retreat was hosted by a woman leading a spiritual community. Our guide outlined an intense itinerary. A private ayahuasca ceremony on the first night, followed by a larger community ceremony on the second day, and concluding with a sister ceremony for just Gretchen and me on the last day. The prospect felt overwhelming, both physically and emotionally. However, I was also consumed by a vast sense of fucking desperation, so I agreed. Perhaps this unconventional setting, coinciding with the 1-year anniversary of Sarah's death, could offer some semblance of healing. I won't recount every intimate and excruciating detail of that weekend. Honestly, that could fill an entire episode on its own. But I will share some pivotal takeaways. Firstly, let me be clear. Nothing about that experience was enjoyable. While I firmly believe in the potential of psychedelic healing within safe, therapeutic environments, ideally with experienced guidance and clear intentions to navigate potential darkness, this was different. Ayahuasca was new, and the weight of acute grief and trauma amplified the intensity. I anticipated a challenge, but the reality was 3 straight days of misery. Interestingly, my physical experience diverged from the expectations. While vomiting and hallucinations are common with ayahuasca, I encountered very little of that. My journey was almost entirely internal, and at that point, my inner world was far from stable. The medicine, that we respectfully learned to call it, relentlessly illuminated that I lacked a distinct inner self, what my guide deemed the capital S self. Instead, I existed as a collection of roles, primarily the caretaker, perpetually focused on others while neglecting my own inner landscape. This realization was incredibly disorienting, shaking the very foundation of my identity and leaving me entirely untethered. Who the fuck was I if I was not the person constantly looking after everyone else? This question haunted me throughout the weekend, accompanied by a persistent urge to crawl out of my own skin. How had I navigated so much life without recognizing this fundamental absence of self? For the first time in my life, and remember, I am a trained and licensed therapist, and I've been in therapy for I don't even know how long, I confronted the extent of my own codependency. I had never even considered codependency as part of my healing journey before. Now, this is the part of my story that brings me to the theme of today's episode and my conversation with codependency and relationship coach, Alyssa Zander. In those dark moments, I realized a crucial distinction. Empaths absorb information. They can take it in. They can sit with it. Codependents, though, we take that shit on. It's ours to fix. We think it's our responsibility to do something about it. That's the role we play. So with that distinction, what have I been doing for decades with all my sister's struggles? What had the past year since her death entailed? I had been internalizing all of it. During our final ceremony of that weekend, as I spiraled into that familiar feeling of being utterly lost and resenting my own company, at one point my guide looked directly at me and asked, "Why was your sister yours to save?" In that instant, the accumulated pain, trauma, and deep discomfort of the preceding 72 hours began to dissipate. A life-changing realization washed over me. Why did I believe my sister was solely my responsibility to save? I didn't possess that kind of power. Who did I actually think I was? From that moment, a significant shift began. I started to release a lifelong narrative, and the feeling was undeniably freeing. I even recall taking a deep breath and thinking, "Holy shit, is this what breathing feels like?" I honestly couldn't remember the last time a breath felt truly nourishing. Then came a final, powerful visualization. I looked within myself again. Earlier in the weekend, when I had done this, I'd only encountered darkness, reinforcing my belief in the absence of a self. But this time, venturing into what felt like the deepest parts of my being, I saw her. I saw myself. She was confined to a cage. And what was this cage surrounding her? Codependency. And then I wept. Not because she was imprisoned, but because I'd finally found her. She existed. My work was far from over. In truth, it was just beginning. But at least I knew now where to start. So yes, that weekend was fucking difficult. Miserable even. I wanted to abandon it and return home countless times each day. Yet, paradoxically, it became the most profoundly healing experience of my life. Upon returning home, I immediately immersed myself in codependency resources, embarking on a journey of self-discovery and healing that continues to this day. Of course, dismantling lifelong patterns and narratives requires time, patience, and self-compassion. But with each step, I feel my capital S self gradually breaking free. And that feeling is fucking worth the effort. So, on that note, I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Alyssa Zander. This is Nothing Happens for a Reason.
Hi.
So nice to have you, Alyssa.
I know. It's so nice to be here. It's really cool to do this in person, honestly.
I'm so excited. What a fun merging of different worlds.
I agree.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Alyssa Zander, and I am a codependency and relationship coach. And I basically just share all of my cringy stories publicly.
It's working for you. So
it's healing something very deep-seated for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Learning how to stand in my authenticity has been such a gift, and I'm glad to be that beacon of light for other people, that it's okay for them to do it too. But I would be lying if I didn't say that I'm like a messy mess on the other side of my posts, whether that's on social media or the podcast, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It is worth it. It's liberating for sure.
Yeah. And you've created such a big community.
Yeah. So I should speak to that. So I'm the creator of Codependency Alchemy. It's both a membership and a podcast. And it's a global community. Like, we have people who are members from the UK, from Africa, from just all over the world. And it's really, really neat to see so many like-minded people coming together and creating this community to be seen, and the messy parts of healing codependency and our attachments and the dysfunctional ways that we show up in our relationships that we maybe weren't aware of. And it's been a really, really neat journey.
It's fucking amazing.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank
and you
you.
just celebrated your birthday, your podcast birthday, right?
We did. Yeah. 2 years, 2 years old. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's only 2 years. It feels like it's been 10. And so much has happened in 2 years. You know, we went from birthing the podcast to being a top 5% podcast within like the first 6 months to being now a top 2% podcast. And even hitting the charts, like we got like top 25 last March. And I was like, wow, this is happening.
You're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. And it's really cool to see how much it's grown this last year too.
Wow. Well, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm curious if you could speak a little bit to how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So I was unaware of what codependency even was. Like, no idea. I mean, what I thought codependency was what I think a lot of people think codependency is, which is, you know, you're in a relationship with someone who's struggling with addiction and moving through that, enabling. Like, that's all I had for context. It's like, oh, you're in a relationship with someone who's an addict and you enable. That's codependency. Yeah. And so I was always really able to be like, oh, well, that's not me.
Right.
You know, I'm not in a relationship with an addict and like, I'm not enabling, like just really pushing aside that narrative. So never really needing to look at it, which I think is really common. Another thing that I used to always tell myself, I'm so independent. Yeah. I'm oldest daughter, and I'm independent as fuck. So I can't be codependent if I'm independent.
Totally. Yep.
Well, it's hate to burst people's bubble out there. That's like, yeah, me too. Hyper independence is literally one of the top codependency patterns. Yeah. It's because we don't feel safe or don't trust other people to carry out tasks, right? So we do it all for everyone else because no one can do it as good as us.
Yes.
Right? Control.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about control, including my own. But yeah, I mean, exactly right. Even as a therapist, and I've worked in addiction work for the last 10 years. And so even I had a very narrow definition of codependency. And I knew the origin was within the addiction world, but it's evolved and changed so much more to something different, or at least a wider understanding of it. And I tell clients every single week, because people hear codependency and people think what that means is I'm this like over dependent person who's incapable of doing anything myself and I need everyone around me to take care of me. And it's almost so opposite to that. And so I'm glad that you're talking about, you know, the misconceptions of it
and the nuances of it, right? It took me breaking up with my partner, which is what led me to this work. We are back together. We've been, you know, together more or less for 11 years as of last month, with a 7-month breakup in the middle. And people always ask, oh, was it like you break up, you work on each other and get back together? Like, no, we were just like, we want different things. Let's go ahead and go our separate ways. It was very respectful, very amicable, which I'm so grateful for. But I think that clean break was actually really important for both of us, that there wasn't this looming, well, maybe we'll get back together, because I think that would have created a lot of control pieces as well. Like, oh, well, I'll do this and then he'll get back together with me, or, oh, I'll work on this and then he'll get back together. There wasn't that.
Or he needs to work on these things.
Which is really what was going on at the time. I was like, everything that, you know, sucks in our relationship is because of him. Joke's on me. I'm, you know, it's a Taylor Swift song. Like, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. That's what I realized, basically. And that's, it's T Swift. Shout out. So yeah, I basically got into a situationship right after that breakup, because by no means did I want to figure out my role in anything. I wanted to find somebody else that I could pour into and fixate on. And I did just that. And it was a trauma bond, which brought up all of my worst patterns, which I had really ignored in my relationship with my partner previously. So yeah, just seeing all the ways that I covertly manipulate people when I don't feel safe, trying to get people to spend time with me because I don't want to be alone. Just like all of these really insidious ways that I was showing up in that relationship were like, had a spotlight on them, basically. And so at that point, I started realizing that maybe it's worth looking at my role in this. And it really was this divinely orchestrated thing. I wish the story was different so it could be more relatable maybe to people, but the fact was that I was seeing the word codependency everywhere for whatever reason. And I didn't have social media at the time, so I wasn't seeing it on social media. It was like seeing it on like books or seeing it just in my head or hearing it in my head as well. And so I got a journal and I wrote codependence at the top of the journal. And I wrote this whole poem, which I've written poetry ever since I was young. It's like the thing that saved me in my childhood. And this whole poem came flowing out of me. And I started seeing how codependent I was because I was so desperate for other people to fill what I was seeing as a vessel in my heart space. And I was like, I needed people to validate me, to see me, to appreciate me, to need me in order for me to feel satiated. But then realizing that it feels good for a moment. It fills that vessel. The way I see it now is like, it's like dopamine, right? If it's coming up through the top of the vessel, it's filling all the little dopamine receptors on the way down, but push out the bottom. And then you need more, and then you need more. And so I was seeing how hypercritical I was when, let's say, my partner did the dishes. Well, he did the dishes, but why would you put the dishes in the dishwasher like that?
Yeah.
Like a crazy person, you know? Like I was immediately critiquing it, right? Because if I actually allowed myself to receive it, well, guess what? Then I wouldn't need anything to come back and fill that vessel and hit those dopamine receptors. So if I'm constantly critiquing it, then I need you to do more, then I need you to do more, then I need you to do more. And
no one can ever live up to that, right?
No, it's impossible, right? So I watched my partner basically go from depressed because, I mean, who wouldn't be, to be constantly critiqued or like have a magnifying glass over you. I saw how I was the damn blanket over his flame because as soon as we broke up, he was like out and about and just happy and light spirited. And that's why I wrote codependency at the top of that journal and wrote that poem, because I was seeing very clearly how different this person was in a relationship with me versus out of a relationship with me.
Did you feel resentful at first about that?
Pissed.
Yeah.
Pissed.
I feel myself being like, what the fuck?
Oh, like resentment doesn't even touch on how frustrated I was. I think that because I was in a situationship at the time, it kind of was like, whatever. But yeah, I'm like, all the things I wanted you to do, all the way that I wanted you to be, here you are being all easy and free-spirited. I want you to travel with me. You didn't even get a passport. As soon as we break up, guess who has a passport and going to Spain? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, I was pissed. But why would he want to go to Spain with me? Right? That's what I started seeing.
Yeah.
Like, why would he want to do these things with me if every time we did something, I was just overbearing and hypercritical, and it was really uncomfortable. It was a really uncomfortable time, but you know, the story ends well. You know, we got back together and my relationship with him is like night and day. You know, we travel every single year to different countries. We communicate. We laugh more than I've ever laughed in my entire life. And we've sustained it for over 5 years after getting back together. And it just feels like we continue to have deeper intimacy over time. And it's required me to take responsibility because my patterns still show up. Like,
yeah, of course.
At my core, I still have these tendencies, but I also have enough safety built into my nervous system to take responsibility for that when it happens. And I think that is what makes such a big impact in my relationship.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's why I do what I do. I'm holding myself accountable.
Totally.
Codependency Alchemy is for me to hold myself accountable because I do not want to fall back into my old patterns and like make somebody else the bad guy in my story, which is what I've done in all of my relationships.
Yeah. Yep. It's so funny. I'm sitting here feeling myself like internally feel uncomfortable because of the things that you're talking about that I've been working really fucking hard on for the last year and a half, but definitely still show up. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, my partner is going to hear this episode and be like, you still do some of those things. Be like, you don't have to listen to that episode because, that's the accountability piece. Like, him being able to have the language, too, of the work that I'm doing. There is something that's still uncomfortable about that for me. And it's such important work. And it's really empowering, actually, at the end of the day. It's just, uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is. I asked Justin one night, we were in bed, and I was like, what do you think is the one thing that changed our relationship? Like, what do you think is the thing that has been this pivotal moment for us? The reason why our relationship is night and day. And the way he answered, well, not even the way he answered, but the fact that he had an answer right away, you didn't even need to take a breath. He was like, you started just focusing on yourself. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Wherever I was fixating on him, now I have that as my red flag for myself. Whenever I'm like, oh my God, he's still on YouTube. Oh my God, he's eating another cookie. Oh my God. Like, whatever it is, that's my indicator now to be like, okay, I'm overriding something within me. What is it that I'm overriding within me? It's usually like I have a need that I'm not clearly communicating with him. And like, I want to spend time with him and I want to connect. And so when he's on YouTube, we're not getting that. And now I'm making his YouTube watching the problem instead of actually just saying, hey, I'm really desiring connection. How can we connect tonight?
Yeah.
Because for my inner child that didn't get her needs met, for the part of me that doesn't feel safe asking for those things because they'll either be rejected or denied, whatever the fears are. Being vulnerable like that was scary. So I'd rather just make him wrong and blame him and pick him apart than just be like, oh, I actually have a need here or a desire and I'm scared to communicate it.
Yeah. Well, so you write codependency on your journal and a poem comes out of it. And then where does it go?
Yeah, it goes, on a wild journey. People call it the dark night of the soul, right? And I'm like, yeah, that shit was not a night. That shit was months of darkness. If you read that journal, it's pretty much my Healing the Mother Wound book, which is a compilation of poems of me realizing my role in so much. And the first section is called Distortion. And it's all the distorted ways that I was relating, right? Control, resentment, anger, they all have a place, but I was over-identifying with them in a way that was keeping me and my loved ones in separation, right? I was so entrenched in this victim villain or victim perpetrator paradigm that kept me separate, right? Kept me as the victim, kept them as the ones who are doing wrong. And I realized that if I wanted to step into an unconditionally loving relationship, one that is based on reciprocity, authenticity, vulnerability, trust, I was going to have to take accountability for where I wasn't doing those things.
Yeah. And was it just like, I'm here, let me dive into it? Is there resistance popping up for you?
Yeah. So like I said, I was in that situationship. So he was what I would call avoidant and I'm anxious. So there were periods of no contact, right? People who are in anxious avoidant paradigms, if you're an anxious attached person, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The periods of no contact. It was in those times, which they had gotten to about 2-week cycles. It was so routine. We would come back together. Everything would be great. We'd have that like deep, intimate conversation. Everyone would take accountability, me and him, and everything would be blissful for like 2 days. And then he would ghost. And then I wouldn't hear from him for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, it was basically like coming from enmeshment to coming back home to myself. And it took about 2 weeks. By the time it was around day 12, day 13, I was finally feeling like, okay, I'm free from this. I'm ready to just step into myself. I don't need this person. I don't need this relationship. Boom, he would text me like clockwork. And then I was hooked again. Oh, this is the time.
Yeah.
And then it was the pattern again. We'd come together. There'd be that repair. Everything would be good for a couple days. And we would do it again. And we did that for months. Looking back, I'm like, damn, I needed to learn that lesson again and again and again. So in that no contact time, it was lots of me journaling. That's where I started learning shadow work and inner child healing, except for I didn't have that language. I didn't know that that's what I was doing. So that's an interesting part of my story. Like doing soul retrievals, I was doing without knowing I was doing soul retrievals. I didn't have enough money to go to therapy. I was a teacher. I had no benefits, which is another big reason why I created the Codependency Alchemy membership and podcast, because I'm like, I just wish I had some sort of support because I didn't know. And I didn't have the resources to learn more aside from books and Google. And at that time, I was deeply entrenched in my codependency patterns. So I'm watching tarot videos, which is the worst thing you could possibly do because you're trying to control, right, through this divination tool. There was this one video I was watching, and the YouTuber literally said, I don't know why this is coming through, but someone needs to hear, stop watching these videos. And I was like, that's me. I need to stop watching these videos. And that was a really big turning point for me because I started actually resourcing from within instead of seeking out. And there was a lot of learning that happened there. That's when I started doing some deep inner work around my own unresolved trauma, which I thought this is going to be a theme. You think you're past it. You're like, oh, I sat with the grief. Oh, I sat with the trauma. Oh, I sat with the forgiveness for those who caused harm in my life. So I'm good, But the thing is that yes, you're good, and it's going to come up again because it lives within you.
It lives in your body. Yeah,
exactly. And that's one of the first things I try to teach people who have joined our community or who listen to Codependency Alchemy, the podcast, is that healing is not reaching some destination of healed where you don't experience discomfort, where you don't experience triggers or being activated. Healing is, I know how to hold myself when I am triggered. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so can we go back to, you brought up your book and the mother wound. Can you explain a little bit about what the mother wound is?
Yeah. So the mother wound dropped in for me after Justin and I had gotten back together. We had been back together for maybe almost a year at that point. And I was doing these meditations. I had become more aware that I was doing shamanic journeying at the time, which for those of you who don't know what shamanic journeying is, it's basically like a meditation where you set an intention with your spirit team and you can go to these different places. You can meet with a guide to help illuminate something for you. And I had set my intention on this day to meet with a guide to help show me what my purpose was, my life's work. And I met with we're going to get real woo. I met with my spirit team, which felt like the Pleiadians. And it was just like my star family. And they kind of came in and they said, your life's work is to heal the mother wound. And that's basically all they said to me. It was very clear. I could see it. I could feel it. And when I say see it and feel it, I could see the words heal the mother wound being spelled out for me. And I had never heard the term mother wound at all before that journey. So I get out of the journey. I grab my notebook immediately and I said, my life's purpose is to heal the mother wound. What the fuck does that mean? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And then I just, stream of consciousness, wrote pages and pages. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember those first sentences was like, the mother wound is directly related to codependency. It's the ways that we judge, condemn, compare, live in isolation. It's where we place our worth and our good feelings about ourselves on someone or something outside of ourselves, which is how I define codependency. And so just seeing how intricately and deeply intertwined codependency is with the mother wound, right? And from that point on, like I think I started my Instagram maybe within
wow.
those few months. Yeah. Got on social media and just started sharing about it. Yeah. If you look on my socials, I just say my life's mission and work is to heal the mother wound. And for me, that's us unraveling from the distortion of what isolation is and thinking that we need to do things alone, thinking that or all the ways that we compare ourselves to other people, right? What they have versus what I have, and their success versus my success. Like, that's all the mother wound for me.
Yeah.
That's how I relate to it.
And I don't know if this is a silly question, but are there connections with healing the mother wound for you being also connected to relationship with mother-like figures in your life? Is that part of it, or is it purely like an internal process, totally separate from family of origin stuff?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Because I think this is where some people get tripped up on the mother wound.
Yeah.
Because they'll say things like, well, I have a great relationship with my mom, right? The mother wound is, for me, you didn't get the love, the protection, your needs met in the way that you needed at a specific moment or time, or moments and times when you were a child. It does not mean that your mom was unloving or unkind.
Yeah.
It does not mean that you have to have a ruptured or estranged relationship with your mother. And so I can look back on my childhood, and my mom was my best friend. And there were times where I needed her in specific ways that she was unable to meet me in those ways at that time for whatever reason. And so that's where I started making myself small. That's where I stopped asking for what I needed. And not because she was a bad mom or a bad parent, but she was doing the best that she could do, right? And so the second piece is, I think that, well, to answer your question initially, like, yes, I think it comes from our family of origin, but it doesn't need to mean that you were in super traumatic homes.
Right.
I was, so there is that for me, but it doesn't have to mean that.
Yeah.
And the other piece that I was going to say is that healing the mother wound doesn't actually have to include your mother in that process. So healing the mother wound for me is becoming the mother that I deserved and I needed as a child for myself and for my inner parts. And so it's less about reconciling the mother wound with your physical earth side mother, because some people feel like they're stuck because maybe their mothers have passed or maybe they're estranged from their mothers. And if that's the case, Mother Earth, like my book's called Healing the Mother Wound with Mother Earth. It's coming back to the original mother. And so I always just tap into Mother Earth and the primordial mother, which is like the cosmic mother, and let them hold me when I am feeling like I'm needing holding, instead of like seeking that out through my Earth side mom. Because I think what a lot of us realize or experience is this expectation that they can hold us and they can't always.
Right.
And then we get to perpetuate this story that we're not good enough or not deserving enough or not worthy enough, because if we were, they would be able to meet us in that. And that, again, is like that same pattern of keeping us in separation. It's like, how can I be that mother to myself? And that is sovereignty.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks for explaining that, because I'm sitting here thinking, my mom who has died, we had a really beautiful, loving relationship. And there's been a lot of realizations and secondary losses that have come up since she has died, of realizing that I think a lot of my codependent tendencies come from her, and witnessing how she managed my father, and not being witness to healthy communication, not being witness to healthy boundary setting. She was very much the peacekeeper in the family, which also taught me lessons about how I'm supposed to show up in the world and maintain the peace and just have my role in the family and not disrupt it because of the ways that my father showed up in the world. And so as you're saying that, it's bringing a lot of clarity too. Like, it's it's not necessarily even directly like needing to heal from direct trauma or pain my mom put me through, but the ripple effect of her impact and how she showed up in the world and how that influenced me.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think something that I've learned in my healing over time as well is that the more safety I've created in my body and my nervous system, the less I need to know where it came from.
Yeah.
And the more I'm able to just sit with what is here right now. So if right now I feel like I need to be the peacekeeper and I need to fix something for someone or make someone more comfortable, then that's what's here right now. And there was a version of myself that needed to know, why do I do this?
Yeah.
And that's the part of me that doesn't feel safe. Like, I want to know why I do this so I can control it.
Totally.
Right. And so that's why the work that I do in Codependency Alchemy is all around building safety for yourself, because that's all you actually really need. You don't actually need to know where it came from. The part of you that wants to know where it came from is, so you can make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Right. Or so that you can control to make sure it doesn't happen when you have kids or whatever the thing. It's control. It's just control based. Speaking of control, we're going to talk about it probably a lot.
Yeah, it's going to keep on coming up.
Yeah. So that was a really cool realization I had. And that was only very recent, like within the last year, something came up for me and I didn't have that initial reaction of, who gave this to me? Where did it come from? Is this from my dad? Is this from my grandma? Is this from my mom? Like,
right. Who to blame?
Who can I blame? I was just like, oh, this is here right now for me. And then just going immediately into, like, where does this live in my body? This fear, this thought.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I am so interested to, as you know, right, how you kind of came into my realm in the midst of very difficult grief moments. And I know our listeners might also be wondering, like, how do codependency and grief connect? And I think it probably looks really different for a lot of different people. And also, the realization for me that grief and loss and death of loved ones is incredibly painful in itself. And it's something that changes and evolves, but also stays with you forever. At least that's my belief. And similar to the trauma, right? It lives in our body. And knowing that I was actually making my grief process so much harder than it already was because of these codependent tendencies that I was carrying with me. And once I was able to name that, and that's how, I found your podcast and your workbook that I bought and worked through and journaled on my own with, so much started to shift and change for me. And I'm curious for you, how does grief and codependency connect?
Yeah, when I think about grief and codependency, well, I guess starting with grief, it's something that is felt in our body, something that we hold in our body. And with codependency, I think oftentimes we're so quick to avoid discomfort. That's why we people please. That's why we fix, because we're immediately just trying to avoid discomfort. And so in healing grief and codependency at the same time, it's actually allowing for space for that discomfort to come forward. And when we're codependent, we're often seeking out, right? Like outside of ourselves for that comfort.
Yeah.
And healing codependency is finding how to be that comfort for yourself so that you can hold whatever emotion, and using this example, grief, with curiosity and compassion and grace.
Yeah. Yes, something that was such a theme for me in all the different journal prompts that you provided at the core, and I've said this to my therapist for years, a really big unmet need of mine in the world, and again, this can go back to childhood, and is this idea of I just want to be seen. And I can think of thousands of experiences, again, since childhood of how I have not felt seen. And like very few I can name where I felt really seen. And so that's been such a deep need. And what comes out though when I am really in my codependency traits is the other side of that is I feel resentful. That was something I journaled about time and time again with your prompts of how is it that you want to feel seen? How do you actually feel resentful? Is this how you would like to continue feeling, or is this aligned with, how you want to feel? Of course not.
Right.
Because resentment is not a fun emotion. And it's really just like self-inflicted pain that I'm putting on myself because the birthplace of resentment is unstated needs. And that's very true for me. And so there's been so many moments, especially in my grief, when I really think about the things, and I still have it, like the things that I feel most resentful about. It was these moments where people in my life, friends or family or partners who were experiencing their own deep, deep pain in the midst of my like acute grief. And I was caretaking them. And when I look back, it's not that any one of them came to me and said, Claire, I need you to be taking care of me. But because it's what my role has been in this relationship, and it still pops up, but I'm working on it, is that idea of who am I outside of taking care of people? So it felt like I needed to take care of them, but inside it was fucking killing me because I was also getting so resentful of like, how dare you? I'm the one that needs to be taken care of. Like my mom just died or my sister just died, but here I am taking care of you. And I did it. But inside just like so angry that this person was putting this on me, but I was taking it on myself. And that's something I'm still working through. And I see how my codependency played a huge role in that. I wasn't asking for my needs to be met. In turn, I'm not being seen. And I'm taking on something that actually was never asked of me.
And did you even know what your needs were, though, at the time? Because I think that is the piece. Like, at the time, we don't even know what our needs are.
Right.
So we wouldn't even know how to ask for them.
Yeah. And it's such a good question because I have been somebody, and this is again, for a long time, I chalked it up to my Myers-Briggs. I remember learning, INFJ, and part of that was you pour a lot into other people, but you also get resentful when you don't get the same back. I remember being like, that's me.
Well, that's who I am.
That's how I feel.
That's my personality type.
That's my personality type. Like, that's okay. Like, I just felt validated that
Yeah.
Like,
and talk about a perfect excuse to not take responsibility.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then learning that is also a really common trait of codependency.
Yes.
Of I'm demonstrating to the world what I want from people because I'm taking care of you. And I'd feel, and again, it comes up in big ways, comes up in small ways where I'm like, this is how I'm showing up for you. Why can't you show up for me in the same way? I'm not saying the needs, and also recognizing that everyone is so different that not everyone shows up in the same way for people.
Right.
But it's this theme of, yeah, maybe I'm not stating my needs or even can vocalize my needs, but you've been in my life. Like, I show up for you in these ways, so you should show up for me in these ways. And that's how it felt for me. Yeah. It still pops up, but I'm working real fucking hard on it. It's going to continue popping up. But so to answer your question, those are my needs. But no, I was not communicating them, and maybe didn't have the words for it. I just felt through the years or decades of friendship, they should just know.
And there's such irony in there. Are you open to a reflection?
Yes, please.
Yeah. The irony in that, for anyone who resonates with that, because it's very common. If you're listening to this podcast episode, then chances are you might relate to this. But resentment, wherever you're experiencing resentment, is where there's a lack of a boundary. Right. And you had said, I'm showing the world the people how I want to be loved or treated or cared for or seen. Right. Because I'm demonstrating it with them, when actually how we teach people how we want to be met is through boundaries, actually, not giving to them. Mm-hmm. It's by setting and enforcing boundaries, which is then going to take away the resentment. So the real medicine, if like that is your story, well, I'm showing them how I want to be treated. Actually show them boundaries, because then they'll know how to treat you.
Yeah. Yeah. And this connects so deeply to, again, this deep need of being seen, because I remember I had a therapy session years ago. I've been working with the same grief therapist since 2018. And so she knows me real well, calls me on my shit. But I remember, because another big theme in my grief has been that I feel pretty chronically disappointed for how people have or have not supported me. I just have this almost expectation now that people are going to disappoint me. And, you know, chicken or the egg, that's how I felt. I've felt that a lot, whether it's when I've allowed maybe my expectations to be dropped, feeling disappointed, or I have taken risks of communicating what I need and then feeling like the person has like fallen short. And it very much, again, comes down to control in a lot of ways. I remember my therapist said to me one day, like, I think we were talking about my partner, and she was like, you're saying these very concrete things that you're needing. Can you just ask him? Can you just say the words to him, which sounds easy? And I remember I just felt, and I said this to her, like frustrated by even the request, because I have this thing about me, which I think a lot of people can relate to, of if I ask for this thing, then it doesn't feel as genuine when it comes from the other person.
Yep.
Right? Like, something that has been a theme in my relationship is he often is like, I don't know what to say to you when you're having a really hard time, or I don't know how to fix it. And that's been a thing where I'm like, there's nothing to fix. And so there's been moments of, if you don't know what to say, it's okay. Just fucking give me a hug. Like, at the end of the day, that's really, in some of those moments, all I need. And so saying to my therapist, like, if I say that to him and then he does it, I'm going to feel like this is me forcing him to do it. And then in turn, I don't feel like he truly sees me because he couldn't come up with that decision on his own. So it just, you know, continues to exacerbate this idea of no one sees me. And if I have to tell somebody how to see me, then do they really see me? It's such a mind fuck.
It really is. It really is, because this is so common. And I used to say it all the time too. Like, he should just know what I need, because I know what he needs.
Totally.
Right? I'm perceiving his needs all the time. But if you resonate with this, check out the needs, wants, and desires episode. That's going to be a really good one. It's a trauma response to perceive the needs of others. So what we're asking is for our partners to now have trauma response to us, which is actually adding dysfunction to our relationship. I just did a post on the 3 codependency myths. And one of them is like, the other person should be able to perceive my needs, right? If they don't, then they don't love me. Then they don't care. Then they're not attuned to me. Then I mean, it's the care thing. They don't care. They don't see me, like what you're saying, right? When healthy relationships are based on communication.
Yeah.
Right? When we believe the thought, well, if I have to tell him, then I'm forcing him. Like, how does that feel? What happens when we change that thought to, when I tell him what I need and he does it, it shows that he does care. Yeah. Because that's what it really is. Yeah. It's, I heard what you need and that it's important to you, and I am going to show up in that way. It's quite literally the opposite. But if we want to figure out why we have that belief, we got to be a little curious, which is, when we believe the thought that they don't care, if I have to tell you, then you don't actually care because you're not figuring it out on your own, we get to continue to validate the story that we already tell about ourselves, which is we're not seen. Yeah. And we're always looking for evidence to show that that's true. So that thought is just us fixating on a piece of evidence that proves our story. Yes. Yeah. You know?
Right. I'm constantly gathering data of why that narrative is still accurate, and maybe not noticing the times that it actually isn't accurate. It's constantly like, yep, there it is, yep. And in turn, I'm not seen.
Yep.
Which is a shitty thing to feel.
Totally. Mine's like, I'm not listening. No one listens to me. No one listens to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of those built-in narratives.
Yeah.
That come out.
Yeah. The invitation for, anyone listening is, how do you feel when you believe that thought? That if you tell them, then it doesn't really mean that they care because they didn't figure it out on their own. And then how would it feel to put that belief down? Which is something that I learned in Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. Read it. It's
okay.
So good.
It's my list.
I honestly, I should be an affiliate or something because I'm like constantly blasting it. And some of the questions in the guidebook too is like that turnaround, right? How do I feel when I believe that thought? How would I feel if I didn't believe that thought?
Yeah. And
just even asking ourselves or contemplating those two questions, we immediately see how our thought is creating our reality. Well, when I believe that thought, I feel not seen, I feel not heard, I feel not cared for, I feel ignored, or whatever it is. Okay, well, how would I feel if I didn't believe that thought? How would I feel if I believed that me telling him that I just need a hug and him doing it actually showed love, care, attentiveness? Well, then I would feel loved, cared for, tended to, seen.
Yeah.
Okay. So what thought is actually aligned to how I desire to feel?
Yeah.
And now, am I going to choose to believe that thought? Or am I going to choose to believe the one that I've believed my whole life, which is I'm not seen, I'm not cared for, I'm not loved?
Yeah. And that shift is so empowering and I think scary too. Right? When we start to let go of narratives that we've had about ourselves for a long time, or maybe our whole entire lives, what that means for how we show up in the world. It's hard.
It's why most people avoid it because, well, now it means that your pain is actually self-inflicted, like you said. Your stories are actually keeping you in suffering. And that's why I created the community, because that's where grief comes in, and a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And a lot of guilt. And if we do not tend to that in a compassionate and loving way, it will only exacerbate those wounds and those stories even more. Because you realize that, okay, I've been the creator of my suffering. Well, now I have to sit with that.
Yeah, that fucking sucks.
That fucking sucks.
It's so much easier to blame everyone else.
Right. Right. It's so much easier to blame everyone else. And then when you realize that you can't do that anymore because you can see now, it's like the curtain has been moved. You can see that it's the Wizard of Oz moment. Like it's, you're behind the curtain. You're like, fuck. Okay. Well, now I mean, for me, it was just this moment of reckoning, and I cried for days. Like, and I'm not talking like crying, weeping, like, oh, I'm so sad. Like it's been so hard. I'm like hyperventilating, crying for days to think about the people who I've hurt, that I loved, the relationships that I probably caused actually a lot of trauma for, not realizing it. You know, you're carrying the weight of all this responsibility that you've avoided for your whole life. And it is painful.
Yeah.
And please find help. Like, please find a space, whether that's a therapist or a friend or a group. Like, we need to be held in those moments because it will break us.
Yeah.
And that's where I was at, you know, when I created Codependency Alchemy. I was feeling absolutely broken and shattered. And I was like, and I know that this is not going to heal that. We need a place where we can come and celebrate and be empowered and be seen and be held with love and compassion. Because when somebody else can see our story and be like, I see you, I do that too. I can be like, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And not feeling alone, I'm like, okay, maybe that judgment is a little bit less because somebody else does it too. And now maybe we can laugh about it a little bit. And now we're joking. Now, you know, that is what heals, is like that laughter, that playfulness. Like, yeah, this sucks. Yeah, I did that fucking thing. Okay, you did that fucking thing too. We both agree that we shouldn't be doing that fucking thing, but we're learning, you know, it brings this childlike wonder and play to something that is really required when doing this inner work.
Yeah, it's the accountability and humility that this work takes, which are both, again, really hard things if they're not traits that we have a lot of practice in. But yeah, that community aspect helps that accountability piece, and yeah, the just inner humility it takes to be able to say, yeah, I've got some work to do. It's hard, but so worth it. It's just, yeah. Well, you mentioned that there might be some benefit of being able to explore your approach with codependency, and in turn, the connection with the grief part of it.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of moving through my own grief portal right now. Speaking of shame and feeling the heaviness of some of my own codependency patterns, I realized very recently in the past few months this attachment I have to motherhood. So for those of you who don't know me well yet, Justin and I have been trying to conceive for 5 years. And so it's been this roller coaster of emotions over the last few years. And I finally sat down with this shadow work prompt, and it came out like something took over my hand and wrote in my journal, if I'm not a mother, then. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't want to fucking answer this question. Like, I don't want to know,
Wow.
But I sat with it, and it's been a huge unfolding after, since. And for me, I realized that I was attaching my belonging to motherhood, right? I belong when I become a mother. All these grandiose ideas for my life only get to exist if I am a mother, and just really attaching my worthiness, my belonging, my acceptance to a world where that is what people do. You grow up and you become a mother. And for my lineage, you become a mother as a teenager. My mom had me at 17, her mom had her at 19, her mom had her at 20, and so on and so forth, right? And so me being twice that age pretty much now, yeah, aging myself. Don't do the math. I'm like, I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I don't belong. I'm not relatable to my family, perhaps, or just to the world. And so, like I said, our conception journey has had these ebbs and flows where I've done all the things that you do for conception. You take your basal body temperature, you track your ovulation, you track your cycle, you take the tests, all the things. And then stepping away from that, and then stepping back into it, and then incorporating body work like acupuncture, supplements, all the things. Well, for the last 4 months or so, I got back on all the tracking thing. I was tracking my cycle, I was taking my basal body temperature, ovulation, all the things. Justin's taking supplements and doing things as well to optimize his health. And one of the things that I did was I chose to do 100 days sober for the first half of the year, because I learned eggs maturing take like 3 to 4 months. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I feel ready. Like, this is the year we're going to conceive this year. And on day 99, Justin and I are going for a walk with our lab, our dog Frank. And it was a beautiful day, and this feeling just washed over me. And I was like, I just want to put all this down. Like, I feel so burdened by this. It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's never been fun, really. And now that I've seen all these attachments to motherhood more clearly, and like done that deep shadow work around what I was attaching to becoming a mother, like my happiness, my joy, my belonging, I'm just ready to put it down and like actually enjoy my life. Because this moment of going for a walk and the sun is out, and like we have this flexibility to go for a walk in the middle of the day because of the lives we've created, right? All this freedom and joy that we have in our life, that I then basically strip away, because in the next thought I think about what we don't have.
Yeah.
right? Like just really seeing how this conception journey has been the thief of my joy and that presence, right? And so yesterday I had written like on day 100, it's like, I'm just ready to put this down and enjoy my life. And I just cried as I wrote it because there's grief in that. I don't know who I am if I'm not striving to become a mother, right? That identity. Like, I don't know who I am if I'm not a mother. I don't know who I am if I don't have this next season or chapter of my life that I always thought I would have. Like, what happens if I'm not even striving for that? I don't know. So, like, there's that grief of who am I if I'm not this? And then there's that freedom of what gets to actually take place when I put all this down. And feeling I can actually take a deep breath. And so what I thought was beautiful is as I was driving over here to meet you, it's like all coming through. Like, I haven't sat with my grief yet around this. So, and this is maybe common for people who are doing the shadow work or they're becoming aware of some of their attachments or their codependency patterns, but then we don't sit with the feeling of that. The feeling of shame, perhaps, or the feeling of guilt, or the feeling of, in this scenario, grief.
Yeah. So that's the end of part 1 of my special interview with codependency coach and podcaster, Alyssa Zander. But don't go anywhere just yet, because part 2 is streaming right now. Alyssa takes us on a powerful journey, sharing a deeply personal shadow work practice focused on her own grief. And this conversation unexpectedly took me in a direction I never anticipated during our time together. Click next to continue listening, and please don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating. Seriously, you won't want to miss out on this next episode.